keyboard and mouse, stops the flicker and may help save a student's academic career. Sensory processing problems often occur in conjunction with many different diagnostic labels. Children and adults diagnosed with the following may also have sensory problems: developmental delays, autism, Asperger's syndrome, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, learning problems, prematurity, Fragile X, fetal alcohol syndrome, Tourette syndrome, anxiety, and many others. A child can also just have sensory issues without any other diagnosis. Working with an occupational therapist and other professionals on your child's sensory problems is very important. Therapy for sensory processing problems often makes other therapeutic programs, such as speech-language therapy or applied behavioral analysis, ABA, more effective. Some children are like a TV with a broken cable that is getting static in the sound and snow in the picture. Calming sensory activities such as deep pressure under a heavy mat or slow swinging may reduce sensory scrambling and help information to get through to the brain. Other therapies may work better either during or immediately after the child has received the sensory input his body needs. This book will help parents, teachers, and therapists understand and work with a child's malfunctioning sensory system. Unfortunately, some professionals have trouble recognizing the problems that sensory processing difficulties cause. It is hard for them to imagine that a child's sensory system functions differently from their own. Some people even think that treatment for sensory integration dysfunction is not very effective because other therapies, such as applied behavioral analysis, have more scientific studies backing them. One of the problems in doing scientific studies on sensory integration dysfunction is that the children's diagnoses may be for autism or ADHD instead of for specific sensory processing problems. Because the problems vary so much from child to child, a particular therapy may be useful for one child and not for another. In other words, it is extremely difficult to get a homogeneous sample to study because of the wide variation in sensory sensitivities, as well as individual responses to sensory input. This book will help you determine whether your child has sensory issues and provide you with immediate steps to take. You'll find a lot of practical information for addressing hyperactivity or low endurance, increasing a child's concentration and attention span, and improving behavior. You'll also find really useful tips and techniques for handling challenges you face each day with your child, such as washing, brushing, and cutting hair, dealing with clothing, going to big stores, picky eating, getting a good night's sleep, dealing with group situations such as school and parties, visiting the dentist, handling noise sensitivity, and much more. At last, here are the insights and answers parents have been searching for to help their children deal with and overcome sensory problems. Dr. Temple Grandin is professor of animal science at Colorado State University and a person with autism. She is the author of Thinking in Pictures, Animals in Translation, and other books.
Preface to the new edition. Nancy's story. When I first decided to co-write this book, my son had already made great progress with his developmental delays and sensory issues. By then, a sensory diet had become a part of our family's lifestyle, and I had educated myself about sensory processing to the point where I felt a strong need to help others in the position I'd been in when my son was first diagnosed. Scared, overwhelmed, in need of guidance and reassurance, and utterly determined to find help. I was inspired by my son's occupational therapist, Lindsey Biel, and by the many parents who took time out from their busy and often stressful lives to offer me hope, advice, and virtual hugs, as we would say when exchanging email on a particularly challenging day. After my son Cole left his full-time, year-round special ed preschool, where he started as a preverbal child whose sensory issues caused him to actually hurt himself at times, he began his first year in a typical public school classroom as a kindergartner.